Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and our Blade Show Week celebration continues. Just because the show itself was canceled, that doesn't mean we can't still hang out with some of our favorite friends in the knife industry. And to that end, I've got my buddy Jim from Kershaw and ZT here today. Jim, how you doing, sir?
Hey, pretty good. How are you, David?
Doing great, man. I know we don't have a whole lot that's like brand spanking new here on the table, but we've got some real recent models that from ZT and Kershaw here to take a look at. I've showed them to our viewers before, but I'd love to hear more from the proverbial horse's mouth, so to speak. Not that
Well,
yeah,
that's not the end that people are usually calling me, but
I would say
that's
don't
kind of
take that as a reflection on you at all. So the first one, kind of like the 308 from earlier, we've got the new 357, which is kind of I see it really as a relaunch of the 300 models, or the 350 models that were so successful for so many years.
the 357 is really trying to take that concept of what the 0350 is, which is a fairly simple knife, G10 scales, heavy duty steel liners, and speed safe action, and kind of change it up, modernize it a bit, um, make it something that you look at the 350 and it's a product of its time. I mean, it's kind of wide, it's kind of beefy. I still love the really nice grip on the G10. That's something that sometimes when we get into smooth titanium and handles and things like that, people say, "Oh, it's not grippy enough for hard work." Well, that's the purpose of a knife like this. This is a true working knife, and so the purpose of the 0357 is to really be something like that. And again, just to be kind of our new take on that, while incorporating some things to make it a little more contemporary. So it's not super skinny mini, but it is narrower. I mean, you lay these next to each other, and you can really see a significant difference. And that width translates to comfort in the pocket. It's easier to get at your change, your flashlight, whatever you may be carrying. So thickness wise, it's also just a hair bit thinner because the scale overlays we're using are just a little bit thinner. So we've got the same thick liners, but the G10 is not quite as thick, and yet it still has that nice grip to it.
And I
Um,
appreciate that you kept those liners nice and thick on this model. So even though it is a little more comfortable, a little more easy to carry, you've still got a nice beefy lock bar in there to keep things nice and secure.
exactly, and that's the idea. I mean, this is one where it's always hard when you go and you look at the Instagram comments and people say, "Oh, that's kind of boring. Oh, it's not as exciting as some of the other models we've released." And I mean, it's a working knife. So I mean, if you look at some of the models we make, I mean, you can almost think of them like pickup trucks. I mean, if you could say that one of them is like it's the top end platinum F350. It's got leather seats and all these things, and this is really more of a work truck. I mean, it may not be quite the contractor special with the vinyl floors, but it's meant to be used. It's got grippy handles. It's got a relatively simple handle shape, and that's by design. It's supposed to be comfortable when you're working hard with it, when you're pushing and carving a stick or cutting rope, doing whatever it is you're doing with it. It's supposed to be comfortable. And actually, truthfully, just as a working knife, it's really useful. And one of the other big things that we have thought about with this knife is this is something that if you have someone like a police department buyer or a buyer for the military, they're in an odd position because they want to buy something made in the US and they want to buy something quality, but they don't have the biggest budget. And sometimes these guys are even buying these things out of their own pocket. And so for first responders, police, and military, having something like the 0357 where you have great features like deep carry pocket clip. And I have a buddy who actually is on the LAPD SWAT team, and he was saying they like to have a lanyard on their knives so that it's something easier to grab and index when they pull them out. And so we needed to have a bigger lanyard opening than usual because those guys tend to have a big roll of 550 cord that's just hanging in the shop.
Yeah, it's a much
And
bigger
so
access point there on the new design for sure.
right. So I mean, a lot of these things are kind of subtle and simple, but we wanted this to be a relatively simple, effective knife that has the G10 scales on it for a positive grip. And so that's what it is. And so for those who might find it a little, I hate to use the word boring, but a little less exciting. Yeah, I mean it's basic, it's simple, it works really hard and it does a great job. And we have lots of different offerings if this isn't your cup of tea.
Well, what I really appreciate about this design compared to the earlier 350, you mentioned the 350 was a product of its times, and this 357, I think that statement still holds true, and it is the subtleties, as you mentioned, that really set it apart. You've got a little more faceting to the G10 as opposed to the flatter scales of the original. Some little things like the little bit of chamfering here, right behind the blade where your finger is going to hit when you flip it open, so it's a little more comfortable. You see that on both sides by the lock bar, deep carry pocket clip. It's just an improvement.
Right. I mean, we're taking the things we've learned. I mean, the 350 came out in the mid 2000s. And, and it's a testament to that knife that we still sell lots of them. I mean, people still like them. I'm not dumping on that design at all. It's a great design. But we've learned things in the last 15 years, and I think it's cool to be able to incorporate them into a new product.
For sure.
And expand that line.
And people can still get that original 350 if they want it.
They can, absolutely.
And then as a sort of a bonus, of course, there's a lot of aftermarket stuff available for that 350. Here at the Knife Center, we've got a bunch of the VZ grip scales that you can put on it. And you can even buy the 350 from us with that front scale from VZ Grips already on it. And there's a few different colors to choose from.
Yeah, and VZ is another great company. They're a great American company. They make a great product. Lots of people are familiar with them. And it's so cool to see that kind of aftermarket support for a product like that, especially after all these years.
Like you said, it's a testament to that product that people are still looking for ways to keep it exciting, and it's still in front of people the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. All right, the next one I'd like to talk about with you is the new 235. New non-locker extension to the original 230, yeah?
Yeah, and so the 235 is, I mean, literally that. It's a line extension. It's funny. I brought an original 230 with me as well. And, you can see the handles are largely the same backspacer, and, a little bit different blade shape. And so when we came out with that original 230, that was something that we looked at this knife, and we actually had a lot of internal debate on, do we have a pocket clip? Do we not have a pocket clip? And we went back and forth. And so on that original model, we decided not to have a pocket clip. And we ended up kind of changing our minds on that. We started thinking about different ways to do this, and we found a way where we could add a pocket clip. And I doubt it's a new innovation, but I love the way this works, that we have a pocket clip where it fits right through one of the handle screws, and we don't have these conspicuous extra holes on the handle that we typically do on most of our knives. So for those people who don't want a pocket clip, the only real difference that you see are two little slots at the back at the back of the handle. That clip's totally reversible, so lefties and righties can both use it. And we made it very minimal. We even didn't put a logo on it because we wanted this to be classy and clean, something that would disappear if you're wearing slacks. And so there was more thought than it looks like that went into this little feature. So because we liked it so much, we decided to actually extend it to both of these knives. So that's something that's unusual for us. We're making a bit of a change fairly early in the life of the product, but we think it's a great thing. And so you can have this knife with a really super functional Wharncliffe blade, which really, I mean, it's one of those things where maybe not everyone loves them aesthetically, but boy, they work so hard. They're just great. Opening boxes, detail cuts, all those kind of things. A Wharncliffe is fantastic, but lots of people also would prefer something a bit more traditional. And so we have this spear point blade that we've offered on the 235. Maybe I should hold that so everybody can see it. And, it's another nice, attractive, look for this knife. So Jens Anso did a great job on this design. He sells a lot of his Monte Carlo model, and we've had wonderful response to this knife. So it was nice to be able to come out with a slip joint that fit into what we do as a company and the kind of knives we make. And we've had great success with it. We're really happy with both of these knives.
What I like about both of these different blade shapes is related to that, the mechanism for the non-locking as well. I don't really like calling it a slip joint myself. I think it actually, for me, I find it makes more sense to think of it as a modified friction folder, in that you don't have that traditional slip joint back spring. You've got those two detent bars for folks out there who might not be familiar with this mechanism that actually provide that. And I think that works really well with the blade shapes you guys have chosen for this model, because it kind of points the force as you're piercing back towards the spine. So it gives it a little bit of extra security in my mind by doing that.
You know, we we had some internal debate on that as well, as what do we call this? And you're right. Slip joint is based on the concept of slipping past a flexible backspacer. So it's a bit of a misnomer. It is different than a friction folder in that it does actually have a true detent,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just completely smooth in its operation.
For sure.
But I will say, regardless of what you call it, I love this mechanism because it's so smooth. I mean, we've been really impressed with how just having those dual ball bearings rolling along the blade, it's very smooth and it feels great. It's one of those tactile things that I wish I could translate through the camera, because it feels really nice. Open and close it, and you never sometimes. And again, not to bag on anything, because I've had a lot of different slip joint style knives, and there are different ways of approaching it. But sometimes you get a real snap, a real sharp click, and some people like that. And I guess I'm the opposite. I prefer the nice smooth action, particularly with a nail nick. I don't feel like I'm gonna rip my thumbnail off when it snaps into those positions with a hard detent. So this just that's my favorite thing about this knife, is just really how smooth and clean that action feels as it opens and closes. It's just a nice, kind of a.
And I wasn't trying to call you out on the terminology there at all.
No.
It was just an observation from me.
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that, because we actually had a lot of debate when we were trying to figure out the marketing information and what do we call this, because it's not a slip joint, really. I mean, it functions the same way, but it's a different mechanism.
But people understand slip
unlocking
joints.
folder is probably correct.
Yeah. What I like about it, you're talking about the smoothness. What I like about it that you just can't do in that traditional implementation of a slip joint. Oh, I messed it up. But being able to flick it closed, I always have fun doing that.
You're better at it than I am. All these things that people do, the cool little tricks and stuff, I'm a little hopeless.
So you mentioned that sorry.
And I'm not.
So you mentioned that the pocket clip, you're going to be rolling that into the original 230?
Yes. Yep.
Is that going to be getting a new model designation, or should we just expect that as a sort of an inline change?
It's an inline change, and it's a bit unusual. And it's just something we decided to move forward with on that model to simplify.
I think it's
great. It's a small difference, really.
Yeah. You're at, it's subtle. I like that it's truly deep carry, since it is mounted from the back. You've got no bit of the handle sticking up above your pocket line if you don't want it to. And it might as well just be an ink pen in the pocket for anyone looking from the outside.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about that, but it's a bit more covert that way.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, the next knife we have also has that same, or pretty much the same pocket clip. Do you want to talk about the 707?
Yeah. So 707 is one that I'm actually really excited about. And it's meant to slot in between two other knives that we have in the lineup. So again, we have the 0452, which is a big knife. You know, it's funny, I forget sometimes that's a 3.75 inch blade. I mean, it's a big knife. And some time ago, when we were still making real wide knives as a whole, we started noticing that that knife, in spite of how big it is, the handles are relatively narrow from top to bottom. I remember years ago feeling like it was most important that this front to back stay relatively slim to be in your pocket, and you end up with these knives that feel kind of like a credit card wallet or something, where they're really wide and relatively slim. And that was one where I'll admit I learned something, where we took that knife and started carrying it, and in spite of how big it was really easy in the pocket. And I've probably said this over and over again at this point, but just narrowing the knife this way from, I guess I'll call that top to bottom, made a big difference. And so the 450 does really well as big knives are concerned for us, because typically big knives aren't always as big of a seller, because people want things that are easy to carry, that don't scare other people in the office. But that knife does really well. And then in conjunction with that, we have the 0450 model, which is that same knife but shrunk down a lot. And so we did that kind of thing that I used to see some companies do in the past, where we had kind of a really big one and kind of a small one. And so this with its current blade length of 3.4 inches fits right in between those two. And even though it's not the same model, it is a new, distinct model. it fits into that same kind of category of being real slim and easy to carry. I love the deep carry clip on it. It's extra deep and it just drops right into your pocket with that coming right to the end of the handle. Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with how this one turned out, and it gave us an opportunity to use the tune detent system. So we were concerned having this narrow handle and having all this real estate that people would have problems pushing their fingers on the lock bar and having the knife lock up. And so we decided to incorporate the tune detent system, which for those watching who may not be familiar with that, essentially it's a secondary small liner that fits in the front handle. So typically on a knife like this, you would have a hole drilled in the backside of the blade, and you have a ball bearing pushed into the lock bar down here. And so when you close the knife, that ball bearing falls into the hole in the blade. So this functions the same way, except that we have a secondary liner in the front handle, and we've put a ball bearing in that side, and then we've relocated the hole to the front side of the blade. And so what happens is we still have a ball bearing on the back side. That actually allows to have it makes a really fine point where the lock bar is gliding over the blade as it opens and closes, and it avoids friction. But then on the front side, we're doing the same thing. We have that ball bearing that glides along the blade, and then it interacts with the hole in the blade for our detent. So it gives it a little different feel because you have two detent balls on the blade instead of one. So these knives, they open great, we tune up that action, but they never really do that drop shut thing. So that's the only real difference of this. And I wouldn't call it a downside, it's just different.
Some people like that, some people don't.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very controllable. It's one nice thing is, you just push it closed and it doesn't tend to fall shut on your hand. But we get a real nice snappy action out of these, and we've been real happy with the way we've been able to tune it.
Well, and I think the upside, apart from just the tuning action, is you can actually be putting a little bit of pressure on the lock bar itself when you're opening it. Some knives out there, if you're holding that just the wrong way, it becomes almost impossible to open the blade, but you don't see that with this design.
Exactly, and that was really the genesis of the system, was was trying to avoid that problem that people tend to have with frame locks. We make a lot of frame locks, and so we've heard that once or twice.
So, and this is something I think I haven't really seen before. Definitely not in the production world. Correct me if I'm wrong. So this is a ZT thing.
At this point, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know if anyone else is doing it. I'm real careful saying anything is first or a true. I don't want to sound like we don't innovate, but at the same time, I'm careful about what I say, because there's always somebody comes up and says, "Oh, someone made that in 1992," and
yeah, there's a lot of brilliant customs makers out there doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah, but in the production world, I think someone will correct me in the comments, I'm sure, but I think we're the only ones doing something like this right now.
I think it's very cool. Is that something that we might see expanded to some other models in the lineup, like an inline change, or just for maybe future models at this point?
Probably not an inline change, but it's something that we'd like to pursue in some other models in the future. Yeah. So it's a neat feature. It's a cool technology that we like to use, and yeah, I think you'll see that coming up on some new models.
Well, I think it works really well in this design. I've always loved long, slender knives, and this knife definitely falls into that category. You've got that 20 CV blade steel, really excellent profile for cutting and for piercing. And again, great gentleman's knife because you fold it up. You've got that rear-mounted deep carry clip. It's just going to disappear, and nice and narrow in the pocket at the same time.
Yeah, and the one other thing that I really like about this knife is that even though it's narrow, we have a full width flat grind, so it still slices really nicely. Sometimes with a narrow knife, if your grind panel gets a little short, and it changes your blade geometry. So in this case, we went with a full width, all the way across the blade, flat grind. And this is actually, I mean, as we speak, this is what's in my pocket, and yeah. I've been carrying this pretty much since I got it, and it hasn't been knocked out yet. This is still kind of my baby right now.
Excellent.
So,
excellent. Well, I think that's all the ZT we've got here to look at. We've got a couple of Kershaws as well. And the new Launch 12 CAs we just got in our hands a few days ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So California legal, launch 12, and these one, it's one of those interesting things, and we've got lots of fun colors here. We've got it. This one, I've got a green one here, and I've got a black and stonewash kind of standard one. Yeah, the California legal thing is great, and we've done California legal knives where they had the real short handle. And this one actually, I kind of like the fact that you have a little more to hold on to. I mean, I've got big hands, and I'd call that a 3.5 finger grip on it. I mean, for a little knife, that's pretty good. So it's real easy to control, and it's comfortable, and you have the proportions are a little different being a California legal knife, but I really like this little design, and
I'd say it doesn't really look awkward to me, even losing that roughly 1/2 inch versus the standard version. I still think it works very well,
and it's still very usable. Again, it's a full width flat grind, so all the way to the top. Nice little tip for piercing or the kind of things you want to do with it, and it's got enough blade to get the job done.
And so it's got CPM 154 steel to hold the edge.
It does, absolutely.
And for the folks out there who haven't tried a launch before, and you're getting an automatic bug, I always like to say, go for a launch, because the prices are great on them. They're made in America, just like any auto you can get here, and your action really is up there with some of the best in the industry, irrespective of price point, I think.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, this one is very snappy in particular. This one cracks.
I find all of the smaller ones seem to really do that. They're just pow,
They do. Yeah, it's cool to see that light blade just fly open.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I love these little guys. I've got I don't have the standard Launch 12, but I've got the bigger brother here as well. So if you want like that classic stiletto look and size, that's still an option as well.
Yeah, and the Launch 12 is another one where, I mean, we started with the Launch 8. I'm losing my numbers right now. We started with the full size version of this model.
I think it's the
8. And we made the shorter Launch 12, which was not a California legal knife. It was a 2.5 inch blade, but it was a size we don't have in the lineup. And I love that little knife. Actually, the proportions on that are kind of wonderful, even though it's stubbier and not really much narrow. It's really not any narrower. And so again, this is just a nice extension of that for those people that like that. Oh, there we go. Fantastic. So here's a standard Launch 12, and I love the proportions of this knife. It's. I mean, sometimes these get little internal names. I've always called this one the baby shark. It just kind of. I have small children. It's anyone who has small children understands what I'm talking about.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because when you held it up, my first thought was some kind of fish, actually. So that's funny.
Yeah, and this one, I mean, I've got to give credit where credit's due. This knife was a Matt Diskin design. He did a great job. We love working with Matt because it's been a really neat collaboration. It's just a great collaboration. All the makers we work with, we've been really happy with the way we collaborate, and there was a lot of back and forth, and this was it's been a successful model, and it's turned out great. So I guess, if I pick up both of these, I can highlight the difference between the California legal model and the standard one. I don't know, am I showing up on the screen okay?
Yeah, we've got you.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think it just gives something for everybody where, if you don't live in California, you can grab this guy. If you live in California and you're under those restrictions, grab this guy, and it's really not much of a compromise. We're talking 1/2 inch of blade length, and it still looks good as a package.
For sure. All right, I think I've just got one more thing here in front of me, and this one, you showed it to us earlier this year at SHOT Show, but the excitement has barely died down, and that's the Lucha.
Absolutely.
Great budget balisong. I say budget. I think it's sort of a mid-tier step-up model, but it's a great way to get started without feeling like you've made any sacrifices in order to get a low price point, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, budget is a relative term,
Sure.
And truthfully, when you look at what butterfly knives go for these days, I mean, I've been kind of surprised when I started looking around, and I mean, geez, I mean, a lot of them are $500-$600. It seems like to get into a good USA made one, in a lot of cases, you're starting around $280-$300. And so MSRP on this one is $180. or maybe 189, but street price on these has been great. I mean, I think what's KnifeCenter charging? Is it 119 or 129?
We'll put a graphic up there, but I think it's about 120 or thereabouts. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was about 120 bucks. And I mean,
You can tell I did my homework.
yeah. No, me too. I mean, I don't know specifically, but I know most sites are selling these for about 120 bucks, and I'm sure that's what you're doing. You guys are competitive on pricing. And I mean, we put a lot of effort into this knife, and as I said before, this is something that we really wanted to get right. And I'll say as right as you can with steel handles, because I know there are always going to be some people that are going to say, well, it's too heavy, it's got steel handles, and my counter is, this is what I can do at a reasonable price point. And quite frankly, I mean, I guess maybe I'm biased because it's our baby, but I'm pretty proud of this knife. I mean, I think we worked with people who really flip. I'll admit, I can open and close it. I'm not really a flipper.
It's about all I've got myself too.
So we relied on input from the community. We actually, this is one. I mean, I'll embarrass myself and say we made a whole prototype, and we sent it out, and it was wrong. And that was on me 100%. Our R&D guys did a fantastic job. They built exactly what we drew, and it was wrong. And we had to start over. And so this one took a little longer. And, I hate admitting that, but, that's what R&D should be.
Yeah, if you're not making any mistakes, you're not trying hard enough.
We get it right every time, but we really try to get it right. And if we need to revise it, we revise it. And so in this case, we started from scratch. We completely redesigned it, and we feel like we've got a really not only affordable but functional and usable knife for flippers at a reasonable price point. For the butterfly knife market has a fairly young fan base, and there's a lot of people that don't necessarily have $500 to drop on a ballet song, or even $300. And so if we can get something out there that gets it in their hands and gets them excited about it, I think that's a win.
No, for sure. So feedback's been pretty good on this model then?
Yeah, it's been real popular. So we're working on building more, and yeah, we're keeping it up and trying to keep them going, because we've had a great response to these.
Anything you can share, future plans for the model, maybe? A little teaser for our audience, perhaps?
Well, anything that popular, we're definitely looking at ways to extend that lineup and to add some cool new versions in the future. So,
all right. Okay.
Yeah, if I were you guys, I'd keep your eyes open, and hopefully we'll see some cool new stuff.
All right, sounds good. All right, I've got one more question for you before we let you go, and this is one. It's a bit open-ended. Take it as you like. For the folks out there who have never tried a zero tolerance knife or a Kershaw knife, what makes your company special, and why should they look at your knives and try one out?
So as a company, I mean, if you look at our product lineup, we run the range from everything from very inexpensive imported product to much more premium high-end product that's all made in the US. And so as a company, our goal is to provide quality and value regardless of price point or where the item is manufactured. That's something that's really important to us as a company, and to me personally as well. I am a knife guy. I was a knife collector for many years. I mean, since I was a kid. I've been collecting knives since my parents would let me, probably since I was about 7 years old. I've got the scars to prove it. And I've been there, and I remember, saving up change in dollar bills to buy a knife. And so I just feel like I don't care who my customer is. They could be the guy that's buying a $25 knife at Walmart, or they could be someone who's ordering multiple ZTs from an internet seller or from various locations. And I want them to get a quality product, and I want them to get a lot of value out of that product. And so that's one of our driving forces. And so that's something that I would say, if you want to look into, no matter what it is, a Kershaw, a US Kershaw, or a full USA made ZT, I want you to feel like for the money you're spending, you're getting quality, and you're getting something that's of value for what you paid.
For sure. All right, dude, thank you so much for your time today. For those of you watching at home, if you want to check out more about these knives or maybe get an order in on one, we'll leave links in the description to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And thanks for sticking around for our Blade Show Week coverage. We've got a lot more going on. Jim, thanks so much for taking your time with us today.
No problem. Hey, man, have a great day.
You too, man. Talk to you later.